How to talk in English. Leo harbored a grand dream, studying abroad. However, a significant hurdle loomed large, almost insurmountable. His English, while good on paper, felt utterly paralyzed when he attempted to speak. A deep-seated fear of making mistakes clung to him like a shadow, silencing his voice even before he uttered a single syllable, preventing any real progress. Every time he considered opening his mouth, a barrage of what-ifs assailed him. What if I use the wrong tense? What if my pronunciation is awful? Why do I always make mistakes? This self-doubt became a relentless cycle, a frustrating loop that seemed to trap him forever. He longed for effortless conversation. He spent countless hours observing how other people talk in English. He noticed their seemingly effortless flow, their natural intonation, and their confidence. Sometimes, they made small errors, but they simply corrected themselves and moved on, seemingly unfazed by their minor blunders. This observation sparked a tiny ember of hope. Why don't their mistakes bother them like mine bother me, he wondered. The realization slowly dawned: native speakers, too, stumble occasionally. The key wasn't flawlessness, but perseverance and communication. This shift in perspective was monumental, freeing him from the crushing burden of perfection, allowing growth to begin. Leo resolved to learn English differently, focusing specifically on practical application. He began researching how to learn English for actual communication. He discovered myriad resources, but recognized that passive learning wouldn't suffice. Active engagement was crucial, demanding a more hands-on approach to his studies. His first concrete step was immersing himself in listen and practice. He started with podcasts, then moved to YouTube videos and TED Talks, focusing not just on understanding, but on the rhythm and intonation. He paid close attention to how native speakers connected words, mimicking their speech patterns internally. He would pause and repeat phrases, trying to match the speaker's accent and pace. This wasn't about perfection, but about familiarizing his mouth and tongue with new sounds. It felt awkward at first, a bit silly even, but he persisted, knowing consistency was key to real improvement over time. Repetition became his best friend. He would listen to a short dialogue multiple times, then try to replicate it verbatim. This technique significantly improved his muscle memory for English sounds. He discovered that the more he repeated, the less foreign the words felt, building vital familiarity. Next, he tackled how to practice English proactively. He found an online language exchange partner. Their initial conversations were painfully slow, filled with long pauses and awkward corrections. Yet, he pushed through his discomfort, knowing that only by speaking could he truly overcome his persistent fear. He still made mistakes, plenty of them. But this time, instead of shutting down, he embraced them. His partner patiently corrected him, and he learned to ask, "Why was that wrong?" or "How can I say that better?" Each error became a valuable learning opportunity, not a source of shame. Receiving direct feedback was a game-changer. It allowed him to pinpoint specific areas of weakness, whether it was grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. Without this constructive criticism, he realized, he might continue making the same errors unknowingly, hindering his progress significantly. He actively sought "let me tell you" talking tips from various sources. He learned about chunking words together, using common phrasal verbs, and the importance of stress and intonation for conveying meaning. These practical tips immediately boosted his confidence during conversations. Every successful interaction, no matter how brief, built his confidence. He started celebrating small victories, understanding a joke, ordering food correctly, or simply holding a short conversation without freezing. These tiny triumphs propelled him forward, motivating him to continue his dedicated efforts. How to remember words became another focus. He stopped rote memorization. Instead, he learned new vocabulary and context, creating sentences or short stories using the words. He found this method made the words stick much more effectively, connecting them to real-world scenarios. He also practiced active recall, testing himself regularly without looking at the answers. Flashcards, not just for definitions, but for example sentences, proved incredibly useful. Spaced repetition software helped reinforce vocabulary, ensuring words weren't forgotten shortly after learning them. He continued to observe how people speak English around him, especially in casual settings. He paid attention to idioms, common expressions, and the nuances of natural conversation. This observational learning complemented his active practice, making his English sound more authentic and fluid. He meticulously crafted an English study plan for talking. It wasn't just about grammar exercises, it prioritized speaking opportunities. Daily listening, weekly conversations, and regular vocabulary review became non-negotiable parts of his routine. Consistency was the cornerstone of his tailored plan. His plan included dedicated time for speaking drills, role-playing conversations, and even talking to himself in English while doing chores. This structured approach ensured that he consistently put himself in situations where he had to produce language, actively engaging his brain. The initial shyness gradually receded. The fear of judgment diminished as he realized most people were encouraging, not critical. He began to see every interaction, even those with stumbles, as a chance to improve, a stepping stone rather than a roadblock on his linguistic journey. True fluency, he understood, wasn't about speaking perfectly. It was about speaking comfortably, effectively conveying messages, and not letting fear paralyze him. The goal shifted from flawless execution to confident, meaningful communication, a much more attainable and liberating objective. His mindset underwent a profound transformation. He no longer viewed mistakes as failures, but as necessary indicators for what needed more practice. This positive reframing empowered him, turning what once felt like weaknesses into valuable signposts for continued learning and growth. He deliberately applied the talking tips he'd gathered. He focused on intonation, raising his voice for questions, dropping it for statements, and using stress to emphasize important words. This made his speech sound much more natural and engaging to listeners, improving clarity. He learned the power of strategic pausing. Instead of rushing and stumbling, he would pause briefly to gather his thoughts or find the right word. This simple technique made him sound more thoughtful and controlled, reducing the pressure to speak flawlessly at all times. Listen and practice remains central. He found that truly listening, not just hearing, allowed him to absorb new structures and idiomatic expressions naturally. His comprehension skyrocketed, which in turn made responding much easier and more spontaneous during conversations. Daily practice, even for just 15 minutes, proved immensely effective. Whether it was reading aloud, shadowing an audio, or just mentally rehearsing conversations, consistency compounded his progress exponentially. Small, regular efforts accumulated into significant linguistic gains. The question, "Why do I always make mistakes?" faded away. He accepted that mistakes were an intrinsic part of the learning curve, a sign that he was pushing his boundaries. The fear that once suffocated his voice now seemed distant, replaced by a quiet determination. He transformed from a passive consumer of English content to an active, engaged learner. He sought out opportunities to speak, watched English movies without subtitles, and read articles aloud. This active participation accelerated his progress dramatically, making learning enjoyable. He continued to observe how other people talk in English, but now from a different perspective. He wasn't just comparing, he was analyzing, identifying techniques he could incorporate into his own speech. He saw fluency not as magic, but as the result of consistent effort. One key observation from how people speak English was the way words blended together. He practiced linking words, especially consonant-vowel connections, making his speech sound smoother and more natural. This seemingly small detail made a substantial difference in his flow. He leveraged technology extensively. Apps for pronunciation practice, online dictionaries with audio, and virtual tutors became invaluable tools. The accessibility of these resources meant he could practice English anytime, anywhere, fitting learning seamlessly into his busy schedule. He even started practicing how to talk in English by talking to himself. Narrating his day, planning his errands, or just thinking aloud in English helped solidify vocabulary and grammar. It was a no-pressure environment for constant, valuable self-correction. To remember words more effectively, he built a personalized vocabulary system. He grouped related words, used mind maps, and created vivid mental images for difficult terms. This multisensory approach significantly improved his retention, making words accessible when needed. He learned how to learn English from diverse media. Watching TV shows, listening to music, and reading blogs in English exposed him to authentic language. He often paused to look up unfamiliar phrases, integrating new expressions into his active vocabulary. His English study plan for talking now included structured conversational topics. He would prepare for discussions on specific subjects, researching relevant vocabulary beforehand. This preparation reduced on-the-spot anxiety and allowed for more confident, coherent output. He joined an online English speaking club. The diverse accents and perspectives challenged him, pushing him beyond his comfort zone. It was a safe space to practice English with others who shared similar goals, fostering a supportive and encouraging community environment. He learned that having an accent was perfectly fine. How other people talk in English showed him that many successful non-native speakers retain their accents. The focus shifted from eliminating his accent to clear articulation, ensuring his message was understood easily. The joy of genuinely communicating in English began to outweigh the fear of making errors. He realized that the purpose of language was connection, not perfection. This profound shift made every interaction enjoyable, turning conversations into opportunities for genuine exchange. Finally, the time came for his scholarship interview. He remembered all his talking tips, his meticulous English study plan for talking, and the countless hours he dedicated to listen and practice. He took a deep breath, ready to face the challenge head-on. He spoke confidently, answering questions with newfound ease. There were still moments where he hesitated or searched for a word, But he didn't freeze. He just rephrased, clarified, or politely asked for a moment, embodying the resilience he had cultivated. He applied everything he had learned, his strategies for how to remember words, his observations of how people speak English, and his acceptance that "I don't want make mistake but I always why" was a question with a positive answer, because mistakes fuel learning. After the interview, a wave of relief washed over him. He hadn't been flawless, but he had been articulate, confident, and crucially, understood. He had successfully communicated his ideas and passion, a stark contrast to his past self who struggled with basic sentences. A few weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived. His dream was becoming a reality. His journey of how to talk in English, from fear to fluency, had culminated in this incredible achievement, opening doors to a future he once only dared to imagine. He knew the journey wasn't over. English learning is a continuous process. But he now possessed the tools, the mindset, and the confidence to keep improving. He understood that true mastery came from consistent engagement, not from avoiding challenges. Now, he often shares his story, offering "let me tell you" talking tips to aspiring English learners. He emphasizes the power of active listen and practice, reassuring them that "I don't want make mistake but I always why" is a normal part of growth. His primary advice: embrace mistakes. They are not failures, but stepping stones. How to practice English effectively involves making errors, learning from them, and moving forward without shame. This perspective shift is perhaps the most critical lesson of all. He encourages everyone to observe how other people talk in English, not to compare negatively, but to glean insights into natural speech patterns and common expressions. This observational learning provides invaluable context for personal practice and improvement. He stresses the importance of effective strategies for how to remember words, advocating for contextual learning and active recall over passive memorization. Building a robust, accessible vocabulary is fundamental for confident and articulate communication. He insists on the necessity of an English study plan for talking, emphasizing that haphazard learning yields haphazard results. A structured approach, prioritizing speaking, listening, and consistent review, is the most efficient path to fluency. He reminds people that how to learn English goes far beyond grammar rules. It's about culture, context, and communication. True learning involves engaging with the language in all its forms, making it a living, breathing part of your life. Ultimately, how people speak English is about connecting. His journey taught him that the beauty of language lies in its ability to bridge gaps, share ideas, and build relationships. It's about being understood, and understanding others deeply. Leo's story is a testament to persistence. His initial fear transformed into strength through consistent effort and a changed perspective. He proved that anyone can master English, provided they are willing to listen, practice, learn from errors, and never give up. His ultimate goal of studying abroad was achieved, not by magic, but by diligent application of the very principles he discovered. His success story became an inspiration, showing that dedication to an English study plan for talking truly yields incredible results. He always tells aspiring learners, embrace the process. The mistakes are your teachers. The listening refines you. The practice builds you. His words resonate deeply because they come from a place of lived experience and genuine linguistic transformation. Immersion, even if simulated through dedicated listening and speaking with partners, was incredibly powerful. It taught him the rhythm and flow of natural conversation, making his own speech more authentic. This deep listen and practice was foundational. From the paralyzing question, "Why do I always make mistakes?" to confidently sharing, "Let me tell you talking tips," Leo's journey epitomizes the path from fear to genuine fluency. His courage to persist changed everything. He now views himself not as someone struggling with English, but as an English speaker. This identity shift, cultivated through sustained effort and positive self-talk, was as crucial as any grammar rule or vocabulary word in his remarkable progress. Leo knows that learning never truly stops. He continues to refine his skills, exploring new resources and challenging himself with more complex topics. His English study plan for talking is a living document, constantly evolving with his linguistic aspirations. The ultimate reward wasn't just the scholarship, it was the ability to express himself freely, to connect with people from different cultures, and to navigate the world with confidence. That liberation, he realized, was truly priceless.